I'm Joe Kaderavek. I'm the CEO of Cobalt Blue, so g'day. I am joined here today by a number of colleagues, so excuse me. Feel free to ask questions or corral us afterwards, particularly at the drinks session. We've got our chairman, Rob Biancardi there, the Silver Fox, just there in the corner. And I've got two of my senior colleagues, Joel Crane and Andrew Tong there as well. So I do bring not only myself, but some of my technical and other colleagues here. Firstly, just a quick segue on what is cobalt. There's a lot of these critical minerals you'll hear about. What does it actually do? Cobalt is a metal glue. If you look at the uses of cobalt in society, a third of it goes into alloys. That keeps airframes strong, keeps them together. Gas turbines, jet engines, keeps them together. So it's a metallic glue. A third of it goes into consumer products, your laptops, your phones, keeps the battery together. And 1/3 of it goes into electric vehicles, and that part's growing, but has the same function. It's a glue. You can thrift the glue, you can make a high nickel, lower cobalt cathode, but you can't get rid of the glue. And cobalt-based cathodes are inherently vastly superior to other alternatives. In terms of who we are in our project, we are a primary cobalt project. So we're the 100% owners of the Broken Hill Cobalt Project. It's a project about 20 kilometres away from the same name town. It's in a historical mining district, and it has all of the benefits of being co-located with a major regional town. That is people, experienced people, people who know mining. We have access to raw water, we have access to mains power through the grid, we've got a railway line that passes through the tenement, and we have a highway that passes within 4 kilometres of the tenement. It is perfect in terms of putting a new mine and establishing a new mine in Australia. The project itself is, as I mentioned, primary cobalt. That's about 85% of the revenue line is cobalt. That is unique globally. Cobalt is an accidental metal in the industry. By that I mean it's a byproduct. If you mine copper in Africa, you get cobalt with it. You mine nickel in Australia typically and other jurisdictions around the world, you get accidental cobalt units. We are the only, certainly listed, primary cobalt mine in the world, and that has tremendous advantages in terms of partnership for those seeking this unique metal. We're also very large, 3,500 metal tonnes per annum of cobalt. Now that seems tiny compared to some of the charts you saw earlier of copper and the like, but this is a sub 200,000 tonne market. Put that in perspective, the entire copper market would fit into one Cape-sized bulk carrier for iron ore. The entire market would fit into one Cape-sized bulk carrier for iron ore. And the bulk of that market is dominated by primary production from Africa, but processing and ownership from China. So 3,500 metal units is about enough to power about 500,000 EVs, 500,000 EVs per annum, just to put some perspective on that. The only other revenue line of any magnitude is elemental sulphur, which makes up the rump. And elemental sulphur in Australian context is used as a precursor for DAP and MAP for fertiliser, effectively. And it's a wonderful segue, particularly from a government point of view, that you're making a critical mineral, but also helping local industry at the same time. One of the strong features of our project is the exceptionally high recovery of cobalt from the ore. And through some very talented people and some very careful and systematic process discovery and ultimately leading to a demonstration scale facility, we've been able to effectively generate between 90 and 95% of the cobalt that's in the ground into a payable product. That's a phenomenal number. Sorry, I'm being a bit skeevy here. It's a phenomenal number. Most cobalt, being a byproduct, is likely to achieve 40 or 50% recovery. Some key milestones, not on the list there, but this time last year we achieved major project status from the Commonwealth Government. It's a recognition of our economic significance, but also a recognition that we are key in this critical minerals playbook. We raised some money late last year, so there's a $22 million or so cash on hand. We were also awarded another $15 million Critical Minerals Accelerator Grant Initiative money from the federal government. again showcasing the importance. So we've got recourse there to about $35 million over the next 12 to 18 months. We are very proud to have built and are now operating a large-scale quasi-commercial demonstration facility that employs 30 full-time people in Broken Hill, and we have enough product to send out between 3 to 10 tonnes of cobalt product. As part of our process, we make an intermediate hydroxide. In the cobalt market, hydroxide represents about 70% of the market. It's the most liquid form of cobalt there is, but we want to ultimately make a battery-ready cobalt sulfate. So an investment in Cobalt Blue isn't an investment in a cobalt mine, it's an investment in a integrated mine refinery concept, and one that will feed straight into Western markets, particularly the IRA, which I can talk about offline. We are in discussions with project partners to find partners to help us bring the mining to fruition, so a joint venture style arrangement. We're in discussions with partners to help us with the refining arrangement. Part of our strategy is to build a refinery not co-located with Broken Hill, but out in the west, in the Kwinana area of Perth. Why? Because what we want to do is upscale that refinery to treat more cobalt units than organically comes from our own means. In other words, not 3,500 metal units, but 5,000 or 6,000 metal units. It's important to our strategy because we think first mover in the Australian industry is important. We also think that once we have built that refinery, made a spec product into the industry, and spec is important. One of the earlier speakers talked about how long it takes to pre-qualify. That's a really important point. If we can make that spec product again and again on scale, then we can then look internally into Australia and start partnerships with other mines and other resource prospects for cobalt and nickel. We also have a cobalt in waste streams project that's live, and effectively that's all about us putting our intellectual property back into commercialising waste stream cobalt, waste stream copper, particularly in the Queensland Cloncurry Isa district, where there is 200,000 tonnes of cobalt metal sitting at surface in tailings dams generating acid-forming mess every year. So this is a wonderful alignment of government in terms of strategic minerals, but the waste streams program is a very strong alignment with the EPA and those who want to clean up mining waste. Quick look at our timeline. I stress we are a developer, not an explorer, so we are looking to finalise our technical work programs that will culminate in the delivery of a feasibility study. I use the term feasibility study under the dual code, being bankable or definitive if you like. That will be delivered this year, and that will be effectively the culmination of 70 million Australian dollars worth of technical work, to give you some idea of the background to this company. I'm also proud when I mention that number that 75 cents in the dollar that shareholders have given us in our history have been spent in technical programs. So we run a fairly lean corporate. Despite the fact there's 4 of us here today, we do run a very lean corporate. And the bigger milestones coming up are effectively delivery of the FS, subsequent FID, late Q4 or Q1, and then construction starting next year. We believe a 2-year construction period with first product. We say nominally late 25, but likely first calendar will be 26 for production. Plain vanilla company, there's a $3 million debt on the books. That's largely as a consequence of buying out the project to go to 100% from the then owners. And we've had a bit of a rough period, as I think the juniors have of late, and we're down around the 40 cent mark today. I just want to scroll through some slides to show you some of the work that we're doing. We've mined 5,000 tonne of ore in the demo plant. The left is the portal, the underground keyhole surgery, if you like, to allow us to extract representative ore. The right is the first stage concentration. So yes, despite the advanced nature of the technology, we actually are using some 19th century technology in spirals and gravity separation. And in the demonstration plant in town, we're running a straight rotary kiln, which is an off-the-shelf product. The only difference is we calcine under nitrogen, which basically separates the pyrite into pyrrhotite and allows us then to extract it under leach. The left-hand circuit you see there, the pressure cookers, they're plain vanilla POX circuits. We POX under the same temperatures and pressures as you make coffee in your kitchen, around 130 degrees centigrade and between 7 and 10 bar. This is not HPAL. It's because of the elegance of the chemistry that we've employed, we actually make a highly leachable intermediate product, that's the pyrrhotite, and allows us phenomenal recoveries at very low aggressive conditions in the POX circuit. The middle green is the MHP, the intermediate, and the right is the end product, which is the battery-ready sulfate. I just want to come on to this last slide here to show the strategic importance of cobalt as well as the refining angle. What you see here is the global cobalt sulfate industry. These are all the converters of intermediate cobalt into battery-ready cobalt, if you like. You'll notice they're dominated by China, with some exceptions being the incoming battery materials facility in Ontario, the Canadians. You'll see Coca-Cola there as well. But these are all effectively fed out of DRC or African stocks anyway. Even though they might be badged as non-Chinese owned, their primary feedstock is African. We would be the only large-scale refinery in the world that not only takes Australian-sourced product, but fully owned ex-China production stream. And that's really important if we want to feed these new markets, particularly in the US and EU, which are incentivising the development, not just of a mine, but are incentivising the development of brand new production chains globally. The 300 billion or so, and I've probably got that number wrong, that carves out of the IRA into the EV space is there to build new production chains into the US market. It's not there to incentivise standalone mines. And I think this shows you the power of our proposal to the market when we, as a startup, can already be in the top 10 global cobalt sulfate producers.